action.
Hello, Damien Barrett with you on Access All Areas, brought to you by OPSM. Lee Matthews is out today. He's in Perth for the Eagles-Cats clash, but replacing him is a man he coached to 3 premierships there at the Brisbane Lions, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us, Chris, on Access All Areas. And first up, what would you make of the Stephen Milne $3,000 fine and apology for use of the word homo?
Yeah, look,
against
Damien.
Harry O'Brien.
Yeah, look, Damien. It's no area for our game. We can't have it. It's a game that's getting bigger and bigger everywhere throughout the media, and it's all going to get filtered down through grassroots football. And if that's accepted at the highest level, well, then it'll filter down to grassroots, and we don't want that. And as we see it on the vision now, you just got to be able to be better than that. Umpires are mic'd up. You've got to be very, very careful. Maybe off a little bit more than what he expected, but very, very lucky.
You're a recently retired player, and I reckon your fraternity, the recently retired players, are probably more of the view that what happened there is partially acceptable. I mean, you look at Dermot Brereton's pretty strong on it. You take the view, though, that no, this is wrong.
No, this is wrong, totally wrong. You can't do this day and age. As I said, it's back in those days, it was amateurish. It wasn't at the professional level, but we're at the professional level now, where so much money's getting poured into the game. The players are getting paid so much. You haven't got the right to go out and abuse another player. And you look to the overseas codes in the NFL and the NBA. They wouldn't stand for these sorts of things either.
Just on that, Kobe Bryant copped a $100,000 fine, the LA Laker, for use of a similar word against the referee. So it's probably elevated being against the referee as opposed to an opponent, but $100,000. That's how that competition, the NBA, deals with such matters. I'm with you. When I first found out about this suspension or this fine last night, I was thinking this might be a little bit over the top. But in the space of 12 hours, I'm convinced that the AFL did what it absolutely had to do and was obliged to do under this. You cannot in any workplace, and this is what a game of football is now. It always has been, but right now it needs to be viewed as a workplace. And even the heat of battle, it doesn't cop it. There's no excuse now anymore.
Well, it comes out of the code of conduct as well. And as a professional athlete, you've got to condone yourself in the right manner. And I think out in the football field, there might be a bit of banter, but I think if it relates to trying to embarrass somebody or put it on somebody else in that term, I think it's a no area.
What about the issue? Harry O'Brien didn't want this pursued. Collingwood was happy for it not to be, given that Harry didn't want it pursued. It seems to be driven by the umpire, Mark Getz, on this occasion. Are you comfortable with that, the umpire taking up this matter?
Look, it has to be brought to attention. It has to be brought to attention and certainly draw the line in the sand, what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. I feel the umpire's probably done the right thing in bringing this up and gone forward with the complaint, because, again, he doesn't want to have to umpire a game where there are sort of these slurs and put him in a situation where he has to report somebody.
Yeah. Stephen Milne, look, he's regularly in the news for the wrong reasons, and what he has to do now, at least going forward, is just use another word, because no one, I don't think, in the wash-up of this, thinks that Stephen Milne meant what he said, but that's no longer an excuse, is it? It doesn't matter.
Exactly right. You go out there and you're trying to put your teammate off, or your opposition teammate off his game, and those sorts of things just aren't in the place of the game. And you just got to keep it very simple and what it is about it, the way he plays, maybe not so much other than trying to put him down.
Yeah. Plenty of other words he can use, which he will need to use. He's not the only guy, is he, Chris, who's had himself in trouble this year in 2012. We just sort of run down the list here. It's been a bad week in many respects for the AFL. Tom Liberatore particularly, found by police in possession of drugs. We look at Lance Franklin. Serious issue, 40 k's over the speed limit. Jack Stephen, drink driving the morning after. Will Minson, very nasty incident with Daniel Pearce. Stringer there from Geelong, which something is still playing out there in the courts. And Mark Murphy, who had a little moment there on a Friday night sitting on his couch, tweeted against an umpire. In the end, $500 less than what Stephen Milne's copped. That one, I think, seems a bit heavy-handed compared with Stephen Milne only getting $3,000 for what he did.
Yeah, look, he's only got $3,000 and, with a bit of verbal stuff. And you look at Will Minson, he's copped a game suspension. So Stevie Milne could see that him getting himself off a little bit lightly and not missing a game, because it was quite in a similar sort of bracket. But, and Mark Murphy there just sitting on the couch on a Friday evening, tweeting about umpires. You've got to be real careful. And the boys there have had a bad sort of month.
Yep. Chris, Dane Swan, penalised by way of a 2-match suspension for basically drinking. As simple as that for Collingwood. Are you comfortable with what they've done? Have they treated him as they would the 43rd or 44th player on their list? Is that the right way to deal with this?
Look, I think the right way has been Collingwood's way, the way they've got their policies in place. They've obviously all sat down as a playing group and made a pat to each other about what is going to happen between now and finals. And unfortunately for Dane, he's gone outside those rules, and the players have come down, and the leadership group has come down. And I guess more importantly, what's your take on it? What would have, I guess the question to you, Damien, is what would have Mick done if Mick was in place? Would he have been the same as Buckley, or would he have gone down a different line towards Dane?
Almost certainly, Dane Swan will be playing tonight under Mick Malthouse's coaching, is the way I see that. And that's not to say that he wouldn't have, had something by way of a sanction against Dane, but Mick Malthouse, and he's always on record about this, and this is why I think he's actually quite realistic about it. He always said you treat every single issue differently, and you treat players differently. He always said that, and sometimes he took the view that the biggest punishment for that player would be to play this particular weekend. Can you imagine the scrutiny on Dane Swan this weekend? If it had been played out publicly, as it has, and then he had to go and play a game of footy, that would have been some fair pressure.
Yeah, look, it would have been a lot of pressure for him to go out and have to perform, but I think more importantly, the biggest punishment now is that he's hurt his team, and I think that's the way the Collingwood Football Club gone down that line, where the biggest punishment for him is not to play and being able to not out there to help his teammate get over the line. And we know the great record that they've had up there in Collingwood, so they're probably going up there a little bit confident, thinking they don't need Swanee, but certainly taking a guy of that calibre out of your side is certainly going to hurt you. I guess the guy that normally sits in my seat here, Lee Matthews, he always said, why punish somebody that can help you win a game? And I think Swanee can almost go and help Collingwood almost any game that they go and play. That
man you referred to, he introduced the breathalyser at Brisbane Lions when he first got there. A bit of a shock to the system to have that on the Sunday morning and Monday morning recoveries?
Yeah, look, it was never used. Lee did introduce it and bring it up at a couple of team meetings, but it's never used. Craig Starcevich used to have it on a Sunday morning recovery session, just sitting there on the bench. There was threats to use it, but there was actually no one have to blow in the bag. But certainly it made a lot of early nights on a Saturday night for some guys that were thinking about going out a bit longer in a finals campaign, or even leading into a finals campaign.
The Sydney Collingwood match this weekend is a much anticipated one, and the Swans, tell me, are you a believer, first of all, can they win the premiership? And more importantly, tell me about what they're doing in defence there with these 7 players who are really tying this team together.
Look, I think the Swans are certainly tailor-made. They've been probably the best stopping team going around, and it starts in their back line. And obviously Teddy Richards is one that's certainly been able to stop his opponent and lock down and create run and carry. Matner, you've got Shaw, McChesky down there. Johnson's even stood up as he's only got a handful of games, but as we see Shaw running and carrying the ball, does that so often. And when he's doing that, the Swans are certainly up. But their back 6, 3 of those back 6, they've all come from different clubs, so they've all got, they haven't had massive time together, but they're all on the same page. And I think it just comes back to knowing your role and performing your role. It just comes back to the old saying of the Bloods, and it's been at the club for some time now. When Kirky was captain there, we've gone through a couple of leadership courses, and I think it's filtered through the whole group. But more importantly, I think it's filtered through that back 6, back 7 that's been able to lock down and actually do their job on any given day against any opposition.
Swan's obviously out, Didak's in. In other years, it might have been a fair swap. It's probably not an even swap now. Does it mean Collingwood lose this game?
Oh, look, it potentially could. Didak obviously playing reserve football at the moment, coming back, has got a great record up there, especially at ANZ Stadium, kicking goals, running and carrying the ball through half forward. He's one that will have to certainly fill that void of Swanee, whether he's going to be placed in the midfield or injected as a sub. That's going to be a massive sort of play that's going to be scrutinised and really under the microscope to see what he can actually produce up there. And we know he can produce great football up there.
Yeah. The Collingwood guys on the long-term injury list who are now coming back, Ben Johnson, Andrew Cracker, Brent McCaffer. Do you expect them to play senior footy?
Look, I think one of probably the 3 of them may be able to come back. Johnson's a seasoned campaigner. He's been around for quite a while. Cracker and McCaffer, they're coming back from those knee injuries. They could play a sub role within the finals, but I wouldn't think they'd be cementing themselves in that 21. But they could add some input to the team going into September.
Yep. Lions had 4 grand finals in a row, won 3. The Cats have put together 3 premierships from a 5-year period, including 4 grand finals. Are they better than you guys?
Look, you can never determine which team was better in which era, but certainly what Geelong have been able to do, they've been able to maintain their list and maintain their development through their younger guys. And, Taylor, Hunt, Christensen, Stevens, these sorts of guys have been coming through and filling the void for guys that aren't out playing at the moment. So they're being able to manage their list well and being able to develop some kids. So for that 5-year period and still going on to this day, and we've seen one of the games of the year.
Will they beat West Coast tonight?
I think they'll go very, very close. I think West Coast coming off a Fremantle loss. I think Geelong will go very close in travelling over there. Depending on a couple of selections tonight, there's a bit of word about a few other players not playing, making the trip over there. So I reckon it'll determine on who lines up for them tonight.
Yep. Essendon, North Melbourne, the twilight fixture on Sunday. How highly do you rate North Melbourne, Chris?
Yeah, look, I rate them very highly. I think they've been a team to be able to. They've always stuck at that 7 wins, but they've been able to get past that at the moment and been able to move forward. They've always been that team that just keeps teasing their supporters. But certainly they've lifted this year. But with Essendon, I think Essendon have dropped down a little bit. I think there's a stat here that Collingwood, Geelong and Essendon, they've all used 36 players within their side this year. But it just goes to show that the experience that comes in with Geelong and the Collingwood compared to the experience that comes in with Essendon. So I think Essendon will find themselves in a bit of trouble come the game against North Melbourne.
Sure. Time now to give the result of our OPSM poll from Monday, where we asked, should Cyril Rioli's tackle have been rewarded in the dying stages of the Cats and Hawks? That was yes, 75%, no, 25%. And I think that's been pretty much the way it has been for the duration of that. The OPSM Fan Face-Off competition, win the ultimate 2012 AFL Grand Final experience for you and a friend. That's what you can win. There are 5 more double passes up for grabs over the next 5 weeks. You need to send a picture of your AFL fan face to opsm.com.au/fanfaceoff or get the free OPSM app from the Apple App Store. This week's winner of the Fan Face-Off was Brent Purden, a Swans fan who managed to get this pick with Gary Ablett. So get your photos in, encourage all your friends to do the same, family also to vote for you, and you can get to the granny like Brent is. And from the Fan Face-Off, mate, that's pretty much it for us on Access All Areas.
Thanks, Damo.
Thanks for joining us, Chris. Luke Darcy will be back from his London, well, he says work, it wasn't work, but he's going to be back on Monday to join us on the Monday edition of Access All Areas. Thanks for joining us today. See ya.